This is Pokalai Nui, and you are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri. If you would like to call and share an opinion with regards to the principles, the 10 principles of a free society, according to Ron Paul, our telephone number here is 524-1080. Okay, moving on. I got an article from one of our listeners. And this one talks about California. You've all heard about rail, and you're sick and tired of hearing about rail here in Honolulu. So let's take an excursion to California and see what's happening there. High-speed rail is headed for a dead end, said Charles Lane. A new review panel appointed by California's legislature concluded last week. Now, this is back in January, so it would be about the 15th of January, 2012. Concluded last week that the state should not issue $2.7 billion in bonds to start work on 130 miles of track for a proposed bullet train through the San Joaquin Valley. Governor Jerry Brown wants to go ahead anyway, insisting that the state has to commit to high-speed rail now or lose out on $3.3 billion in federal funding. But it's absurd for a state facing, quote, chronic deficits, tax increase, and social spending cuts to gamble billions on high-speed rail when all evidence indicate that it would be a colossal waste of money. In 2008, California voters approved a high-speed rail system stretching from San Diego to Sacramento on the premise that it would cost $33 billion. But the projected cost has since soared to a mere $98 billion. The market for high-speed rail, meanwhile, seems more dubious than ever. Flying between Los Angeles and San Francisco takes about an hour and is relatively cheap. And good luck getting Californians out of their cars. High-speed rail is nothing but a gold-plated fantasy, and, quote, it's still not too late to hit the brakes. Now, this comes out of the Washington Post back in January 2012. When an election is taken on a presumption, or not an election, but a referendum is taken on the presumption that the cost of a project is X amount of dollars, and when that project increases to twice the amount or 3 times the amount, is the referendum still valid? Or is it time to sit back and reconsider it? Does a politician or a government official have the discretion to say, yeah, I know what the people have said previously, but I'm reinterpreting that vote, and I'm not going to go ahead with it. I'm going to put it on hold. Well, Mr. What's his name? Privadores, Panos Privadores, would say, yes, they do, and they have done it. I like his expressions. But he's very clear on it, and if he had been elected mayor, he would certainly put it on the back burner as, who's that? Ben Cayetano is trying to do, while the other other candidates for mayor this time around, Carlisle and Caldwell, are saying, no, rail. All right, we'll see. If you have an opinion, give me a call at 524-1080. Okay, now we come to this Sergeant Bales and the Afghanistan Massacre. There's an article that appeared in Saturday's newspaper. And it talks about Bale. It goes into his background. He's actually had been a real nice kid, and he had done some good stuff in high school. He was captain of his football team, and yet, although he was playing a particular position, a new kid comes in, and he recognizes that this other, I shouldn't call him kid, this other player is actually better than he is. So rather than fighting for that position, he actually takes this new player under his wings, teaches him a few tricks, and gives him that position. So it shows this kindliness, this warmth, this very good person in high school. This other player eventually becomes a football star, plays professional football, and the rest. So obviously he must have been excellent. But what happened? And the story goes all around how could one person commit such a mass murder? What was the change? And was the military to be blamed for allowing this to happen, to sending a person 4 times into Iraq and then into Afghanistan, even when there is some concern that the soldier has or is suffering from PTSD or some emotional traumas and the rest. Now, all of that comes from the lawyer who had not yet visited Mr. Bales. So when they started asking him further questions, then he steps back and he says, well, maybe I shouldn't talk about the case. Yeah, brother, you shouldn't have talked about it from the beginning. But he's surmising these things, not even having spoken with the client, and it's questionable whether or not he actually had the medical records to even speak about these things. But he places that as an issue. You remember the last week I was talking about watch out for the squid, where it tries to shoot a lot of ink to blind you? Well, that's part of the tactic of this attorney, who then says, well, I better shut up. Yeah, you should have shut up from the very beginning, and you should speak with your client first. There is a presumption by the American media that the events occurred as the reports are coming out that Bales says that he went out, and now he went out twice to kill villagers. There's a separate investigation going on, and that investigation is in Afghanistan itself, which the American media doesn't seem to be picking up. This comes from the Pajwok Afghan News, and it's entitled Reflecting on the Troops. Out of Kandahar City, a parliamentary probe team on Thursday said up to 20 American troops were involved in Sunday's killing of 16 civilians in southern Kandahar province. The probing delegation includes lawmakers Hamid Zal Lyle, Abdul Rahman Ayubi, Shakiba Hashimi, Saeed Mohammed Akhund, and Basmillah Afghan Mao, all representing Kandahar province at the Wulesi Jirga, and Abdul Latif Padram, a lawmaker from northern Badakhshan province, Mirbat Mangal Coast province, Mohammed Sawar Usmani, Farah province. The team spent 2 days in the province interviewing the bereaved families, tribal elders, survivors, and collecting evidence at the site in Panjwal district. Hamizal Lali told Pashwak Afghan News their investigation showed there were 15 to 20 American soldiers who executed the brutal killings. We closely examined the site of the incident, talked to the families who lost their beloved ones, the injured people, and tribal elders, end quote, he said. He added the attack lasted 1 hour, involving 2 groups of American soldiers in the middle of the night on Sunday. Quote, the villages are 1.5 kilometers from the American military base. We are convinced that one soldier cannot kill so many people in 2 villages within 1 hour at the same time. And the 16 civilians, most of them children and women, have been killed by the two groups. Lali asked the Afghan government, the United Nations, and the international community to ensure the perpetrators were punished in Afghanistan. He expressed his anger that the U.S. soldier, the prime suspect of the shooting, had been flown out of Afghanistan to Kuwait, and from our understanding, subsequently flown to Leavenworth. He said the people they met had warned if the responsible troops were not punished, they would launch a movement against Afghans who had agreed to foreign troops' presence in Afghanistan under the first Bonn Conference in 2001. The lawmakers said the Wolesi Jirga would not sit silent until the killers were prosecuted in Afghanistan. If the international community does not play its role in punishing the perpetrators, the Wolesi Jirga would declare foreign troops as occupying forces, like the Russians, Lally warned. President Hamid Karzai on Thursday asked the U.S. to pull all its troops out from Afghan villages in response to the killings. Okay, I'll stop there. The news article, the American press reports that in this case, and this was reported by the Associated Press, Lolita Baldur and Deb Reichman, estimating that the swift justice is unlikely in the Afghan shooting, suggesting that it may take as much as years before the public ever sees bails in a courtroom. So on one hand, the American justice system is going to unfold over a long period of time. On the other hand, the people in Afghanistan is saying, well, first of all, he shouldn't have been taken out. He should have been tried, and the investigation done with him there should have been completed. And they are going to take action against those very Afghans who agreed to allow American troops into Afghanistan. So can you see that additional pressure against Hamid Karzai, who is trying to get the Americans essentially out of Afghanistan because of this ongoing pressure that is occurring? Very, very interesting build-up. Who is right? Well, it's hard to say. We are getting at least two different stories. Previously, we were only hearing from the American view. And what is the basis of their American view? Well, they're listening to the guy who claims he committed this horrendous act. Why is it that while a person can confess to killing 16 people, is also imbued with a sense of honesty that he was the only one? Is he the best person to hear from? Or is it not appropriate to listen to the families of the people killed and going into the villages and actually seeing what had happened? Interesting comparison. Or are we so swayed because Bales is more like us, speaks the English language, grew up in a place more familiar to us as opposed to those foreigners? And are we now parting truth or falsity based on mere familiarity, but not really looking at the truthfulness? In this particular case, you have an investigative team of public officials. Now, you might say, well, I don't trust them. Perhaps that's the American experience with their public officials. But is it the same with these folks who are, I would suggest, more highly religious? And there's a prohibition, a very strict prohibition about telling lies. So it raises these questions that we should at least be open-minded to. Our telephone number here is 524-1080. If you would like to call and share an opinion on some of these things, give me a call. We'll put you on the radio. Let's go to our caller. Aloha, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Here's American justice. In 2002, the Taliban actually surrendered. So about 8,000 Taliban surrendered to the American or the coalition forces. So what they did was they put them in containers and tried to, haul them away to get trial and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, they need some air conditioning in here. So they machine gunned them. 5,000 were dead. They hauled them off and buried them in mass graves. And they were wounded, too. Now, will the people try it and everything? No. Where's the justice for that? Do you think one guy is going to get justice? Well, what are all these American troops and these foreign troops that massacred these Taliban forces?
Yeah.
You know, and wonder why they don't trust the coalition forces.
Yeah, one wonders. Yeah.
Right, why don't they trust us?
Yeah.
Right, what are they to liberate you? Can you get some more people to go in more containers, please? You know?
Yeah.
And on the way in, by the way, these in that recent massacre, they raped 2 women. You can read it in presstv.com.
Oh, is that right?
Yep, they raped 2 women. No news about it in America.
Yeah.
You know, we have a controlled press.
Now, give me the source for this information about the rape of 2 women.
You can go to, the Iranian source,
okay.
presstv.com.
Okay, presstv.com. Okay.
Yeah, OIR. Which the IR one comes out of Iran, and the American version is .com.
Okay.
So there's 15 or 20 American troops.
Interesting.
Now, why is only one guy getting the pin on the blame? Talk to him. They'll probably give him a deal saying, well, listen, if you take the government story and feed it, we'll chop off 10 years off his sentence. Something like that.
It brings me back to the My Lai massacre, where you had many people involved, troops involved, who killed a village of people. Of course, there were others who didn't want to participate, and as a result, that information came out to the public. But of that, how many people were actually tried? And the only name that comes to my mind is Cali.
Right, they always find a scapegoat.
One person. And then they stop right at that point.
He's a rogue one, a rotten apple.
Yeah,
This thing is not rotten apple. This is a systemic thing. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
Part of the training. You think they go to boot camp and everything to learn, how to call these people nice names, like Haji? You think they go over there and train to, you should go over there and give them flowers. They go to boot camp to learn how to hate, kill, and destroy.
And build a mentality among those in the military of disregard for the local people. Even here in Hawaii, there was an article, what is this? Let me see if I can find it. Let me read just this part. It's a letter to the editor. Some soldiers disrespect Oahu. Now, this person, Dave Verrett from Mililani, is a retired veteran out of Vietnam, and so he has strong military ties. But what he says is that he says, I know the specific behavior I am outlining here is not limited to military members, but as a retiree, I just think that the present and former military members should display higher standards of conduct, higher standards of respect, and higher standards of responsibility on base and especially while off base. Specifically, I am disgusted at the lack of responsible conduct and respect shown by some Schofield personnel while off base. The boombox cars, stereos, speeding in cars, and dangerous and discourteous operations of sports bikes all contribute nothing to endearing the military to our community. Our military are supposed to be highly disciplined. How about showing that in your own communities? So if they are doing that here in Hawaii, this disrespect, disregard for the locals or the pineapples or whatever they are calling us more modernly.
Right.
Imagine what happens when they go off to Afghanistan. And, even I feel this kind of anger at these guys acting this way when they come to Hawaii. Imagine what the Afghanistan must be feeling, as well as all the other stories that, such as what you just told about the 8,000 who surrendered and then just wiped out and no follow-up.
Yeah. Well, the follow-up on that one was that they could not find the bodies, It was years later that they dug up the mass graves.
I see.
It was they found about 5,000. So who was brought to justice? Nobody. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I heard a click, so I thought.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this stuff goes on all the time.
Yeah.
And it's in Afghanistan and it's everywhere. But unless it's brought out by, you cannot read American news and get truth.
Yeah.
You got to read the foreign.
That's right.
Press. You got to read BBC. You listen to BBC. You got to get direct from the mouth of the
people themselves.
It's affected.
Yeah.
They don't. In American press, they never give the point of view of the victims, especially if the victims are not American. Did you ever read anybody interviewing on TV an Afghani woman whose kid was killed and or their relatives raped? Some of these atrocities. But the one woman said, you can see this on YouTube too, by the way. She said the guy, one of the soldiers put the AK-47 or whatever, the machine gun, in the mouth of her son. And then the babies were shot in the head in a temple.
Yeah.
This is gross, but you think you hear that in the news? Oh, no, it might offend some people. You report these things. In other words, if you report the truth that's bad for the Americans, it's going to affect some sensibilities here.
Yeah. Before we go to news, I wanted to read a very short piece, but I want to thank you for your telephone call. Yeah. And call back in the next hour after the news. Okay. Take care. Aloha. And this is KWAI 1080 on your AM dial. I picked this up from the internet. And it says, it's not the president who commits our troops to endless battle. It's not the war bumpers in the press, on talk radio, and the analysts on TV. It's not the members of Congress who have abdicated their constitutional war-making responsibility to the president. It's not a public that stands by while the United States is responsible for 43% of the whole planet's military spending. It's not the fearmongers who always want more defense spending. It's not the war profiteers in the military-industrial intelligence complex. It's not the clueless American public that lets their country's blood and treasure be squandered on ill-thought-out foreign adventures. It's not Senators McCain, Graham, and Lieberman who never met a country they didn't want to invade. It's that 18-year-old kid who walks into a military recruiter's office because he can't find a job. Or maybe just wants to serve his country honorably. His unconscionable decision is the root of the whole thing. He's the problem. Yeah, right. Okay. And it seems that this is the way they're twisting it. They're looking at this kid who joins at the age of, in this particular case, he joined at the age of about 26. But the pinpointing of this one individual and say that he is the problem, having been a good kid, where did he go wrong? Well, it's this rotten system, starting from the president all the way down, that has really gone wrong. All right, my friends, in a minute from now, we'll go to the news, so let me get something more pleasant to listen to than my angry voice.
Kaulana na pua o Hawaii Kupa ama hope o ka aina Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino Pala pala anunu me ka paka Pane mai Hawaii o ke ave Koku ana honoa o Pilani Ka ko'o mai kaua I o mano Pa'aku me ke oni o ka
sivila a o ke kana